Hey, Bubby.
Yo, what's up, man?
Nothing much, man. How you doing?
Oh, I can't complain, man. I'm alive. My wife and daughter are good. I'm chilling, man.
It's good to hear, man. Good to hear. I mean, I'm sure you've been incredibly busy, so I appreciate you fitting me into your schedule. And
Yeah, not a problem.
I'm excited to hear you're working on a new album. I mean, I found out about you after you released your last album, Hero Dynasty, and
Mm,
immediately, I love your style. You're definitely like a really unique bass player, really pushing the envelope on what guys are
Thank you,
doing
man.
right now. So I'm really excited to hear what's coming up. But how's that process coming along? Do you think you could tell the listeners what they can expect?
It's coming along good, man. My main focus every time I'm working on some music, I just want to make sure I'm doing something different, still being me, but just, I guess finding out more of me. I guess if I was to say something, then just trying to do what I did on the last album better, and you know, exploring different stuff, trying stuff. I feel like that's what the responsibility is. So it's coming along good though. Just you know, really doing some experimentation. I'll say that.
So
Yeah.
has the process changed album to album for you? With like, do you feel like you going back to like after making One Up, your first album, and then
Mm.
Hero Dynasty? Do you feel like you get a new approach to the process as a whole, or do you feel like you have a similar process in the recording and it's more so musically you're innovating?
That's actually a really good question. To be honest, I feel like each time the process is kind of evolving or changing. Uh, I'm really, I guess I'll say this. My first album, like I was confident and I was really happy and stuff like that. But I still learned some things about myself after that first album. And the second album, I was like way more confident. Hero Dynasty was just like I did mostly everything on the album. But now this album, it's like I'm really, really doing everything, and it's just each record has been me experiencing like not caring about nothing. Like I thought I didn't care on the first record, but now it's like no, I really don't care. I'm just doing what I want to do and doing what feels good to me and what sounds good to me, and you know, like the plan is just to really give whoever listens to the music, just give them who I am. And as people, I mean, we should all be kind of growing and changing and, still who we are, but, we may have started eating stuff different or, whatever. Something about our lifestyle changes. We learn something new, or at least we're supposed to. So I just feel like I need to give people that, and
Sure.
yeah, I just don't care. I don't care about the things that we might tend to fear on a daily basis with trying to please people or anything like that. Like I do not care, man. I'm just doing it.
Yeah, I mean that's great. It sounds really like freeing and like an ideal place to get to. But I do know that
Yeah.
for me, I get really obsessive when I'm thinking about something like that, where I want to
Mm.
control all the aspects and get it down perfectly, and that
Yeah.
can be tough when you're taking on every little aspect of your album, not to
Oh
mention
yeah.
teaching and performing. So does that get stressful when you're trying to tackle every angle of the project?
I mean, it can, but it's just all about balance, man. Like I've learned so much. I mean, I'm a family man. I got a wife, I got a daughter, so I try and use the joy that I have with being able to spend time with them as my inspiration. And I can't always do the lesson thing like I'm been doing them like the past couple of weeks, but I mean it's probably gonna come to a halt again for who knows how long. It may be a year, it might be for good. Who knows? I don't really know. But I'm just trying to balance everyday life and just I don't want to be too stressed out. Um, and just I don't want to take for granted that I'm alive either.
Yeah.
Like music working on music and touring and all of that stuff is fun, but it's like I'll tell you what my buddy told me. His name is Harold. He owns my favorite restaurant here in the United States. It's in West LA. It's called Fudaibo. It's a Japanese restaurant. He tells me all the time that I talk to him, people take for granted life every day, and if you're fortunate enough to wake up, the minute you open your eyes, somebody around the world is closing theirs, you know?
Yeah.
And like, I could sit and stress at how long certain things take, or if I didn't do this right, or if this didn't go as well as I planned. But at the end of the day, it's like, does that stuff really matter? So if I have the opportunity to work on music today, or just spend time with my family, or whatever it is, I will utilize that, and I won't take it for granted. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I mean that's beautiful, man. It's good that you can find the balance because I mean I feel like for a lot of people just trying to hustle and get a lot done. It's tough
Yeah.
to balance things, and last winter there was just not enough to do. Like for me personally, that was really
Oh, tell me
difficult.
about it.
And then
Yeah.
I got so much moving this summer that now I've for like a couple months now I've been in a place where it's hard for me to find the balance and know what I
I
should
feel you.
sacrifice. Do you ever feel um, are you still finding times where you've bitten off too much and it's hard to balance? And is that ever
Oh, definitely.
but has that ever
Definitely.
led you to have to give up something you really care about or love? Whether it was an artistic
Um,
endeavor or just something you were doing as like a hustle before?
you know, it's happened to me before, like where, like I'll give you an example. Um, Obviously, I love to play music. I love to record and stuff, and I like to do live stuff. And there's a lot of times where I have, who doesn't want to make money? I mean, I want to make money and stuff, but there would be times where I would maybe take on a little bit too much, and then you end up, you know, stressing yourself out, and then you end up kind of being disappointed with your days. And early on, when I would experience that, I would deal with it for a long time, and I would just be trying to tough it out. But now I'm at a place where if I get into something, man, and I just see that it's not cool for me, I just be like, look, I gotta gracefully bow out here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's honestly the reason why, when it comes to even the teaching and stuff like that, and even playing, like, a lot of people reach out for me to play on stuff, but a lot of times I'll take these long breaks from doing it because I'm just trying to just ease my mind,
Yeah.
and like right now, I'll probably mention later, yeah, hey guys, if anybody wants to get any lessons in, because people are always asking. But coming very soon here, I probably won't be able to do this, and it's probably going to be a very long time. Like, I don't know, 5 or 6 months, something like that. Like 5 or 6 months off from doing anything like that, because I was out in Japan and just spending time with my family and working on music, looking at cherry blossoms and using that as inspiration to write a song, So yeah, the balance can be crazy, man. And I mean, I'm not like supernatural where it doesn't bother me. It happens to everybody, but it's like, how long will you let it last? That's the real big issue, you know.
Yeah.
It's like when you realize something is kind of weighing you down, what's going to be the tipping point where you're like, all right, I'm about to stop this.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear your perspective on it. I mean, just because it is like I feel like a lot of musicians go through that, and a lot of people
Oh
have to
yeah.
kind of pick their lane. It's tough. It's tough for me to I'm a bass player mainly, and it's tough
Mm-hmm.
to balance just trying to do interviews like this sometimes. But I'm
Yeah, I
glad I
feel
do
you.
it, man. But it's good to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah.
Now, like you were saying, you're like you don't care at this point. You're doing what you want on your albums
Hmm.
and in your music. Would you say at this point you found your voice, or is that something you feel like you're still struggling with?
I mean, I've found it a long time ago, but the way it is this. I was fortunate that I kind of figured out who I am some years ago, but even once you figure out who you are, you still want to like grow and be a better person and all the Disney sounding stuff, all the superhero sounding stuff. You
Yeah.
want that. So if you are doing that, then there's new things you're gonna learn about yourself. And it's a never ending journey, really, honestly. So um no, I know who I am, and I know what I'm about, and I know what I feel led to do, and in that, I guess the mission for me is just to continue to have the courage to be true to who I am. You know what I'm saying? Like, here's the thing, man. It's impossible to please everybody. You can go out of your way to please one group of people, and they might enjoy it, but then there's another group of people that won't enjoy it. So since there's no guarantees, you might as well just do exactly what you want to do and then live your life, because even if no one likes what you do, you'll never look back and be like, man, I wasted all this time trying to please these people and I was miserable. Like, you'll look back and say, well, I was doing it my way, and I that's the type of artist I want to be, and I want to encourage other people to do the same, because it's it it's hard, man, when you're doing things that you don't really care about, and you're worrying so much about how things will be received. And I mean, dude, I for crying out loud, I love uh Avengers Endgame, right? I was practically crying, because being a comic book nerd, to see Thanos on the big screen and all of the Avengers fighting against Thanos, that was like amazing for me. But there's people I know that was like, it was whatever.
Yeah.
Everybody has different perspective, and everybody has different things that they like. So you just kind of gotta, just, if you can find who you are and really look at what makes you happy. And I tell people all the time, if you can look at music and really ask yourself, like, what do I want from music? Like, yeah, what do I want to do in music, but what do I want music to do for me? And if you can answer that question and go after it, I feel like people will really experience the joy that only they can experience with music. It's like everybody can experience something different, but a lot of times we feel like we gotta maybe copy this, or rip off of this person and stuff like that. And it's like, you don't have to. You can do what you want to do. You just gotta be brave enough to do it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Now, I mean, obviously, music's a profound thing for everybody. But
Yeah.
listening to your interviews, I feel like you've got a really special relationship with it, because I heard you saying that you hear music in, like, in other senses, and what you see in other people, and what
Mm.
you hear from them, and you see color when you listen to music. Do you have synesthesia? Is that
Yeah.
what you were describing? You
Yeah.
didn't say it in the interview, but I kind of gathered
Yeah.
that was it.
Yeah.
Now, what has that done to inform your experience of the world, and like has there been any drawbacks to having that experience with music?
Um, Honestly, it hasn't necessarily been any drawbacks from the music, but I mean, there's been some times where people was like, "Oh, this dude is a psychopath," or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
like when I was growing up, I didn't used to tell none of my homies about it, because they would have been like, "Man, this dude weird," you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
you know, what I've learned is, like, it's not that it's not a superpower or nothing like that. People say it's a superpower, but I don't even like to use that word. It's just something some people have. And I mean, I was talking to my buddy the other day. Like, I hear, he's another guy that has synesthesia, but we hear music all day, every day, because of looking at stuff. Like, I can look at the carpet and I hear a note or a chord or something, like, it's, even if I turn off the radio. So instead of trying to fight it, I just use that, I just go with it, and I use it to write music. I use it in the middle of playing if I'm on a gig or session or whatever. Just let it be what it is, and and just
Sure.
have fun.
Yeah. Um, Now, did that like make certain things when you were young musical for you? Like, were you almost musically influenced by non-musical things? Like, was there like, oh, a particular room that you would look at and it would almost give you like a
Yeah.
musical like inspiration even before you were a musician?
All the time. Literally, like one of my favorite things is hilarious, but it's eating because the flavors of food does something. It's I can't even really explain it, man. Like certain drinks and stuff like that. Like I don't drink pop anymore, but when I was a kid, like all the different flavored pops, Mountain Dew and root beer and stuff like that. Like they all made me hear different things, and then fried chicken and macaroni and cheese, pizza, all this stuff would make me hear things different. And obviously, yeah, like different rooms and different colors and stuff like that. Taste, different smells. Listening to people talk. I always, even before I was a musician, I was listening to like obviously it was color that I could hear and see or however you want to say it, but it was also like hearing the notes when people talk and when cars are driving by. Like it's like real music nerd stuff. But yeah, I definitely didn't say that kind of stuff to the homies growing up because they would have for sure called like the police.
Well, I'm sure it's even tough
Like
for
dude
like
was nuts.
people who are hearing this now. I'm sure it'll even be tough for them to quite picture what that would be like. I mean, is
Oh
it
yeah.
is it kind of outside of conventional musical genres? Like if you drink Mountain Dew, is that like electronic dance music or is it just a music all its own?
No, it's like its own thing. Like I mean, I don't drink pop anymore, but okay, for example, I'll drink. It's this one of my favorite teas, probably my favorite from Japan. It's called Mugi Cha, and it's a barley tea, but it kind of tastes like just think like coffee, sort of coffee
Okay.
tea, but cold. Every time I drink it, it's like certain chords, or it may remind me of a song or something like that, or it may just be a note. It just depends, but um I will say this is definitely an all day thing for me, but there's people that are dealing with synesthesia on a completely different level, and it's way more traumatizing. Like I know guys that can't even leave their house, and they have to sit in dark rooms and stuff because it's just too much.
Oh my
You
god.
know, yeah,
I
it
haven't
was a
heard about
guy
that.
did a. Oh, dude, it's this guy that did a lesson with me like maybe 2 years ago, and when he called me well, I got on the Skype with him, and he was like, I could barely see him, and he was like, man, he had his bass in his hand or whatever. He was like, man, I don't mind, learning some bass stuff from you. He said, but honestly, I just want to talk to you about synesthesia, and I was like, okay, and he just like laid it all out. He was like, man, I can't leave my house. And he said like on even on gloomy days, he said it just to go outside and see grass and cars and hear birds chirping, and he said it's like voices. And I was like, oh man, like I felt terrible because for me, I won't say that I can shut it off, but I kind of can, where it just doesn't bother me, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But for him, it's like constantly, and his blanket and everything. Like he had to choose a blanket that relaxes him so he can sleep. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's literally like the crazy. It's such an amazing thing, but it's so like wow at the same time.
Yeah, I've never heard of it that intense. I didn't realize it could be that
Oh,
detrimental.
oh
Um,
man,
but I mean, it's a crazy world out there. It's not. I guess it's not surprising to hear something like that. I mean,
yeah.
I feel
I
for
mean,
anyone who's crippled by something like that. I mean,
dude, You never know, man. A kid at Nam Show came with me last year. His father wrote me and was like, if you don't mind, I would like you to meet my son. He has synesthesia, and we're planning on coming to Nam Show. So he brought him to Nam Show, and I'm standing at the MTD booth, and the guy came over and said, hey, I don't know if you remember me, blah, blah, blah. This is my son. Young dude. He was like maybe 16 years old. And he had like really crazy synesthesia. And as I started talking to him, I was like, how do you feel right now? And he was like, I'm shaking. And I was looking at him like he looked like he seen a ghost or something. And I was like, is it because of all the noise? And he said, yeah. And I was like, well, what do you see right now? And he was like, everything. And I was like, I understand, I get it. And he just, it's all, I won't say he wanted to cry, but he literally was like on edge. And I told him, I said, man, listen, you gotta just breathe. And the way you win is if you stop trying to fight it and stop trying to like, as if it's like a curse or something. I said, just let it do what it does. And so he just kind of stood there, and we kept talking, and then he was finally like, man, I'm actually feeling better. Like, it's not that bad. I said, no, it's not that bad. It's like imagination, but your mind is just going. But you just live life.
When you were
And
young and you
yeah,
didn't feel like you could really mention it to as many people, did it feel like that sometimes? Because I imagine for him it helps
nope.
to be able to talk to someone about it.
I mean, it didn't bother me, and I literally didn't say anything to my parents, nothing to nobody, and I didn't even know what it was called when I was a kid. Like I didn't even learn what it was called until I was, I don't know, grown. I probably was like 18 or 19 years old when I figured out what it was even called. But my buddy Eddie that I grew up with, we just so happened to be at our church had a studio upstairs, a recording studio, and we were listening to this Frank and Bali record. It's a song called "Leave the Ozone Alone" off of the Thunder from Down Under record, and I kid you not, we was just sitting there listening to it, one of our favorite songs, and Eddie blurts out and he said, "Man, that chord is such a pretty orange," and I literally jumped up and was like, "What?" And he was like, oh, I just said it's a real pretty orange, and this one is like a green. And I was like, wait a minute, you see colors? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, man, I know you since I was like 5 years old, and we never, not one time, talked about it. Never.
Wow.
Never talked about it. But when mine and even his, it's not like the other guy or even the young dude I met at Nam Show. It's not where it's like, oh my gosh, I can't breathe. It's just like, it's all right. I see this and I smell this and it sounds like this. Blah blah blah. Live life.
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I mean, like I said, it seems like you have a really interesting relationship with music, but obviously music's just profound for everyone. I mean, was there
Yeah.
just on the music side alone when you were young, was there any, huge influences that were like pulling you into music at first? I know you started in gospel music playing,
Mm.
but early on, what were your other like influences that you just wanted to listen to from a young age?
I mean, definitely gospel music, man. Growing up in church really, really helped me appreciate music because gospel music, a lot of people don't realize it, but gospel music can be some of the most beautiful, beautifully written, but yet some of the most complex music ever. It could sound so simple and so well written, but when you really begin to dissect all the elements that are put into place, it's like giant steps times 1,000 sometimes. You know what I'm saying? It depends on what it is you're listening to, who it is, and I guess just growing up in a you know we church folks, like my dad was a pastor. Just growing up in that environment, I loved music already. Didn't care nothing about playing an instrument as a kid, but I just you know, having rhythm and stuff like that was normal, and knowing if something was out of key or like the wrong key or flat or sharp, like that was normal for me growing up. And I mean, I remember even when I was a kid. How old are you? How old are you?
24.
Okay, so back in the day, because I'm 35, so back in the day with cassette tapes, sometimes if you put them in the cassette player, if something was wrong, it would speed up or slow down the music, even if it just barely, slightly. And I remember back then, I would put cassette tapes in of something like it could be Andre Crouch or Commissioned or the Winans or the Clark Sisters, somebody like that. And every now and then, the cassette player would kind of be messed up, so it would speed the song up just a little bit. But I could tell, like, okay, hold on, didn't know the notes. I didn't know keys or nothing like that, but I'll be like, this isn't right. It's too high. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but I feel like just growing up in that environment just kind of gave me this, and anybody that grew up in church, I mean, 90% of the musicians in the music industry all grew up in church. And we all have that similar story of just hearing amazing singers and always around amazing musicians and stuff like that. People that don't have no, you know, music training and no degrees in music, but we were just fortunate to come up in this musical environment, and it's part of the culture too. It's part of our culture here in the United States, with African Americans and stuff like that. So I mean, I'll never take that for granted, and I'll never sit up here and be like a music snob, like I'm a know-it-all and stuff like that. It's literally, I'm just fortunate that I came up around, some amazing singers and musicians, and just hearing good music,
Yeah. I love a lot of that stuff. I mean, I got into music kind of late, when I started taking it seriously, and I'm not really a
Mm-hmm.
religious guy, but gospel
Mm-hmm.
music is almost religiously moving to me sometimes how beautiful it
Yeah,
can
yeah.
be. And like the virtuosic musicians who play. I know like Andrew Goucher. I know
Oh
you're
yeah,
you're
the
close with him.
Godfather.
His playing is fantastic, and I wish I could, you know, uh, get more in that bag. Learn more about that style. But part of it is just growing up in that incredibly musical environment, and it's so cool
Yeah,
to see people who got schooled in that kind of playing.
yeah.
Uh,
I mean, it's just like if you got a kid that his family is constantly doing the mariachi thing or like country music and bluegrass. When you grow up in it, you have a different perspective, and whatever your background is. I mean, I say this all the time, like people that are from India or like the Middle East, that's some of the most incredibly written music. And I mean, even their theory and stuff is so broad, and they have this, it's like a natural ability to just be so doggone dope. Like literally some of the most amazing singers and musicians from India, but yet they'll hear what we do over here, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's so amazing!" And I'm listening to what they're doing. I'm like, "Dude, y'all are like blowing this out the water." You know what I'm saying? Like what you guys are doing over there, 3-year-old kid that's singing and doing all these runs, like because that's traditional for their culture. But yet they'll hear like and it doesn't. It's not to discredit what we do here, but it just goes to show you like whatever you grow up in, you're used to. So when you hear something that you're not used to, that's an opportunity for you to admire something different.
yeah,
So yeah, I grew up in church, and gospel is so special to me. But yeah, when I started listening to jazz and bluegrass and J-pop and oh my goodness, film score and video game music, I was like, oh, like what in the world is going on? Like this is amazing. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. Um,
So yeah,
I mean, I wanted to ask you also about your opinions on, you know, Japanese music and video game music because I saw that you at one point were considering going into video game design. Is that correct?
Yeah, I
Um,
wanted to, I wanted to be like the art designer. Yeah,
that's something I wanted to do when I was really little. I used to be really into
dope.
drawing before I did music, and I was
Same here.
way into Japanese video games. I used to play Dynasty Warriors and Final
Yes,
Fantasy, and in
yes.
middle school I got way
Kingdom
into
Hearts, Dragon
yep,
Quest.
yep.
Yes,
I got way into manga and anime,
yes.
and I was deep into all that stuff. And as even though it's not necessarily like at the forefront of my interests today, the Japanese
Mm-hmm.
culture has had a huge influence on a lot of things I really love.
Me and you both, brother.
Did that start really young for you? I mean, was it like right out the gate, or is there a particular phase you went through? Like, how did that all come together, and what was like the beginning of
Man,
it?
4 years old. First anime I saw, I shouldn't have been watching it, but I woke up in the middle of the night, and the Sci-Fi Network back in the day used to show anime movies at like, I don't know, 2, 3 in the morning. They would just come on. But one night, man, I just randomly woke up and I saw this anime where this dude was punching people and their head would explode when they got punched. Fist of the North Star,
Okay.
or in Japanese, Hokuto no Ken. And I mean, when I saw that, I was like, "What?" Now, mind you, I'm like 4, so I'm like, "Wow," you know what I'm saying? Like, this is cool or whatever. And I didn't know anything about Japan. I didn't know anything about that. But fast forward to a few years later, Ninja Turtles, and I'm listening to Master Splinter explain, you know, Humato Yoshi and Huoko Saki and all these names in Japan and ninjas and stuff. And at that point, I was like, "What is this Japan?" So fast forward some more, go to school, and I started learning a little bit about geography, and then I come across Japan, and I'm like, "Oh, this is the place Master Splinter was talking about, and oh, it's a tiny island. This is that another, and then samurais and anime. I started putting two and two together. Speed Racer is not a cartoon; it's anime. And that joint I saw where the dude's heads was exploding, that was anime. And Transformers is actually really anime, and Voltron. And I just started putting two and two together, man. And the video games, obviously, Mario and all that kind of Donkey Kong, all of the greats, all the great games, Zelda. I realized all of that stuff was made in Japan, and I had loved the music, especially Final Fantasy. I mean, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, man! Like Final Fantasy, low key changed my life. Like that
Same.
that was epic for me, and of course Metroid, everything, man, everything was just so dope. But yeah, man. Even before I was a musician, I was so inspired by video game composition, and when it really, really, really took a toll on me is when Pokemon came out. The very first Pokemon I literally had red, blue, and green, and when they brought the limited edition yellow with Pikachu, like I had all of them. I had everything, and I was just like blown away at the 8-bit and 16-bit vibe stuff. And I just it was so dope because they don't really have any rules in video game. It's just make something that makes people feel something, just like film score.
Yeah.
Like you're not necessarily worried about what sonically translates to people, and you're not concerned about making a hit. You're just concerned about like taking a scene and adding some music to it to make that scene more impactful, you know?
Yeah. I mean, all
And
that
I
stuff.
love it.
It's so specific. It all has its own vibe, and I feel like
Yeah.
just that was a huge part of my childhood. I was so hooked on so many of those games. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like what was your favorite Final Fantasy game?
Oh man, what a question. Okay, so early on, if I go to like the first few, it would definitely probably be the second and third one. Fast forward, everybody loves 7. Of course I love
Oh
7.
yeah.
But I also love 8 and 9. I love Tactics. I love the ones that people hate on. I love Final Fantasy 13, 13-2. I like Final Fantasy 10. I like Final Fantasy 12 and 12-2. Um, I mean, honestly, all of them, man. It's so hard to narrow it down to one. Not Final Fantasy 9. Oh my goodness, like Hidenori Iwazaki did a lot of stuff on that one. I mean, it's I don't know, man. Like, what's your favorite? I'm curious.
My favorite's Tactics. Dude,
Tactics, okay. See,
I played the hell out of that game. I love
dude,
Tactics so much.
Tactics is dope, man. Tactics is dope, and even like the spin-off Square Enix games like Bravely Default. I mean, anything that Square Enix is a part of, RPG is gonna be dope.
Yeah.
It's gonna be dope.
Yeah, well, they're all such like a cool vibe. They just game to game. I
Yes.
mean, like 8 and 9 are probably my favorites after that. Or like ten's up there with it. But they all have
Yeah.
their own beautiful like style to them. The mechanics all work so well.
Yes.
The like even like the little card games within the games. It's all
Yes.
so well done. It's it's so hard
Yeah.
to make the time for it now. I don't play a lot of video games today, but I there's
Yeah.
still such a soft spot in my heart for that stuff.
Dude, me and you both. I mean, it's just Final Fantasy 5, Final Fantasy 4 with
I never
Gold
got into those
Gold
ones
Baz or
though.
whatever. Dude,
So
they're so good, man. I mean, it's those are like feel good games. You know,
yeah.
they're just really good feel. I love the idea of side quests and you can beat the game and then you come back and then you realize it's like 1,000 things that you didn't do. Like it's just great. It's great.
All right, now
It's great.
how about your favorite anime or manga?
Okay. All right. So what I'm gonna say here, people will probably slip my wrist and slip my throat, but I'm gonna say it. Dragon Ball or anything with Goku, I'll say anything with Goku. Dragon Ball Z, GT, Dragon Ball Super, or Cho, if you want to be specific. Dragon Ball Cho. That's like the. I'll say that that's like the Michael Jordan of anime in the sense of that anime is what really brought that's what made anime what it is today. It kind of helped usher it into everybody's household, and it made people understand the difference in watching a cartoon versus watching Japanese anime. So Goku definitely did that, and I'll give him that credit. Even though we already had Speed Racer, we already, Sailor Moon was out around that time too, and Ronin Warriors and Gundam Wing and stuff like that. But Goku literally made anime like where the world wanted to see him turn Super Saiyan. Like that, I remember like yesterday when that actually happened, and it was on the news for weeks. Like the new trend, the Dragon Ball Z from Japan and Super Saiyan, and I mean, like they didn't even know how to describe it on the news, but I just remember it took over the whole world before we even really had internet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean,
And so, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I feel like I'm such a chump anime fan because I had a feeling that might be the one. I know you love Dragon
Well,
Ball, but I've
it's
never
not the
watched
one. It's
Dragon
not
Ball.
the one for me. You never watched it?
No, I missed out on that.
No.
I've seen so many,
Oh,
and I haven't seen that one, and I know it's a lame thing as an anime fan. That I like it,
no, it's not. It's not.
but
No,
it's a
bro,
big
it's not.
one. It's a big one. To like I'm just saying like there's a chunk of my understanding of the culture missing.
But
I know that. I still love anime, but I know
you're
I'm missing out.
24 though, man. So it makes sense. It makes sense. You're young. You're like 10 years younger than me. So it makes sense.
Yeah. You know, it is what it is.
It's
But I got to
it's
be honest
older.
about it.
Yeah, you got to be honest. But now, so here's the part people would probably want to kill me for. For me, even though I adore Dragon Ball Z and Goku is my guy. I mean, I've been saying it for years. I'm Goku. I'ma say it. But the greatest story that I've ever witnessed in anime, and I mean, I've literally watched thousands and thousands of series. I've read thousands of manga series. Like since I started going on a scavenger hunt the minute we got internet, like AOL dial up, and then the comic book stores used to bootleg. Like, this is so illegal. This stuff is, but I mean, it happened like 20 years ago. Comic book stores would bootleg anime and put it on a VHS, and they were selling that junk for $15 and $20, just ripping people off. But whatever, we didn't care because we needed it. But dude, One Piece is probably the most amazing story I've ever witnessed. And the reason why I say this is because, now, don't get me wrong, Naruto is phenomenal. Naruto is amazing. Bleach and Yu Yu Hakusho, I can go down the list of all of like the greats, even like some of the new joints, My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer, they're all phenomenal. But One Piece, the one thing for me that it has over everything is that you get every single type of anime genre in one when you're watching One Piece. For example, like, you have like the feel good animes, and then you have the crazy action joints, you have the suspenseful joints, and then you got the joints that just make you cry. Like, I've literally cried so many times watching One Piece. I can't even count it on two hands. Like, I've legit sat up and just cried, and my wife would be dogging me out, like, dude, what's wrong with you? Like, dude, she'd be like, this is a freaking cartoon, and you got tears in your eyes. But the story is so impactful, and Ichiro Oda figured out how to make these characters that are not real connect with people so well. Like, and I mean, One Piece has so many characters, like thousands of characters, but for some reason, you don't forget anybody. Like, I've forgotten characters in Naruto. I've forgotten certain characters in Bleach. But One Piece, everybody, like, I don't care if it was somebody that I saw in the very first season on episode 30. If they showed them on episode 900, I'd be like, oh, that's what's the name from blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't understand how he did it, but it's like, it makes sense why there's so many episodes, because they really paid attention to, like, character development and stuff, you know?
Yeah, I mean, for me, a lot of those ones you just mentioned, I read a lot of those, and I was a big fan of One Piece. That was probably one of my favorite ones to read.
Yeah,
I never watched it, but I loved reading it. And anime wise, I'm really into like Samurai Champloo, Cowboy Bebop,
oh, that's great.
Hunter
Wonderful.
x Hunter.
It's wonderful.
But
Gone, of course. That's Yu
yeah,
Yu Hakusho, yeah.
yeah, I read Yu Yu Hakusho too, also amazing. But I think my favorite one that I only watched a little bit, but my probably favorite to read was Gintama, because I just remember
Oh,
laughing
Gintama's.
out loud reading that.
Oh, every time, every time. No,
So good.
Gintama I will say Gintama is a classic, because it's really just comedy and parody, but the action that's in there is dope.
Yeah, I mean it's I don't know, it's
Gintama is good.
yeah, there's I don't know. I could go on with anime and manga. There's so much good stuff out there, but I definitely wanted to know what really got you going about it. I know what I gotta check out more of now, because
One
there's
Piece,
always
brother.
more. Yeah, I gotta watch it. It's been so long. I miss reading it. I never finished it. I don't even know if they're done with it, but I got like maybe
Oh
40
no,
something books in or something. I don't know.
nowhere near. They're just about to get to episode 1000 on One Piece. But I mean, I was, before you called, I was catching up reading on my Shonen Jump app,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's just good, man. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, it's good to nerd out with someone about it. It's not very often these
Yeah.
interviews I get to go back to my anime and manga days.
Oh yeah.
Um, Let me know if I'm holding you too long, by the way, because I know we're
No,
we're
no, you
going pretty
good.
long. But I
You
definitely want
good.
to touch a little bit on another one of my loves, hip hop. Um, and in that world I consider you a bit of royalty. You've been playing in the past with Snoop Dogg,
Mm-hmm.
one of the greatest to do it. So
Mm-hmm.
I got a few things I want to ask you about hip hop.
Yeah, yeah.
I know you said that Andrew Goucher hooked you up with that gig with Snoop Dogg. Is that
Yep,
correct? Um,
that is correct.
what was that like meeting him the first time? Like how
Meeting Snoop.
yeah.
Man, it's about what you would imagine it is. I mean, Snoop is what you see of him. That's exactly who he is. I mean, I got called to do it. Goucher hooked me up. I didn't have no gigs, and long story short, he's definitely the one that got me on that gig. He made a phone call, and fast forward a few months later, uh, had our first rehearsal because we were going to be doing 3 shows in SoCal and then going on like a 3.5 week Europe tour. And I remember I went to SIR in Hollywood, man. Um, wasn't nervous, but I was just turned 21 and I knew, I'd never done this before. I'd never played professionally, so I didn't know what to expect. And walked up in there, man, and just was, on my bass. And then he walked in. He didn't say nothing. He had his blunt and his entourage and stuff like that. And everybody just started cracking jokes and laughing. And he came over to me and he gave me some dap and didn't say nothing. And we didn't run no music. They were cracking jokes and people were stopping by, like Busta Rhymes stopped by, and
Wow.
who else? Fat Joe stopped by, Dr. Dre stopped by, Pharrell stopped by.
Oh my god.
I think Timberland. I think Timberland stopped by. Yeah, it was just like a party. Like it wasn't a rehearsal. We may have ran like 3 or 4 songs, and the rest of it was them just eating pizza and chicken and laughing and smoking. So yeah, that was my first time meeting him, man. But I will say this: there was no there was no intimidation or nothing. Like you can tell from how Snoop has kind of carried himself that he's just a laid back dude. He's chill. And when I got around him that first time, that's the first thing you feel is like, oh man, this dude is chilling. You know what I'm saying? Like he ain't got no big head, even though he's this legend. Like he's just a regular dude, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, we went out on the road, and that's when I learned more about him. Like he's a gamer. This dude, literally, like him and Superfly and all of them, they just sit up before and after the show and just playing video games, Madden and FIFA and NBA 2K and NHL, and I mean,
Yeah.
it's like all the time, all day long. That's what he would do.
Now, when you're playing these tunes, are you sticking close to the record? Is there improvisation in the shows? And what's your favorite
Always,
Snoop song to play?
always improvisation. Because that's what makes a live show a live show. You can play it just like the record, but it's what it is. What I learned is, man, know the record and bring the live element to give people something new and something that's special for that show. You know what I'm saying? To play the exact same show note for note, it's like there's no experience in that. So you want to give people an experience. I mean, he didn't rap everything the same. The words were the same, but he put different movements and stuff like that. Said it different, and it's all always got to be different. As far as my favorite song, um, I got a couple. Let's Get Blown. Gonna get my tears. You know you want some more, girl. Come on, let's get blown. That joint. Um,
Yeah.
Ups and downs. There will be ups and downs, smiles and frowns. That joint. Um, I'm balling,
Oh,
Ball
I was
and
just listening to
Baller.
that one earlier. I love that one. Yeah.
Yes, that joint. Uh, Cali is active. Oh
What?
my gosh, Gin and Juice.
Yeah. Classic.
It's a lot, man. It's a lot.
Yeah, there's so much. I mean, there's still so much of Snoop Dogg's discography I haven't even gotten to, but I love
Oh
so much
man.
of it so much. There's just too many albums. But personally, I'm a huge The Dogfather fan. That's my
Yes,
favorite, man. I
Dogfather is a
love that
wonderful
album.
record. Yes.
Joints like You Thought and
Yep.
6 Minutes. Oh my God, I love that
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
Um,
I like them too. It's kind of hard to just. It's impossible to just have one favorite. Like man, it was this dude got like I don't know 80 or 90 like number one hit songs.
yeah.
So it's hard to narrow it down.
Now, who else in hip hop has had a big influence on you, or would you say hip hop in general has had a big influence outside of your career playing it?
Oh yeah, man, for sure. I mean, I've always admired the art of it. To first off, you got to be a very intelligent person and when I say hip hop, I'm talking like real hip hop, like Nas and Jay-Z and Common, like Lupe Fiasco. Like you gotta be smart, corrupt. Like these guys they'll rap all day long, but they're intelligent. So I've always admired that art, and of course the music production. I mean, I can go on all day about Wu-Tang Clan. Oh my goodness, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like Redman, Method Man. I could all day long. Talib Kweli. It's literally it's so much. Fat Joe, freaking Nelly. I mean, it's so much. Outcast.
Yeah,
The art
it
of it
never
is just
ends.
sweet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and just like beyond musically, it's also fascinating. The just the design of characters is it's just so
Yes.
like artistically it relates to so many other forms of art and just how deep you can
Yes.
get just breaking down an individual artist. But
Dude, so
musically,
much.
is there a particular rapper or producer whose sense of rhythm has really influenced you as a rhythm player?
Um, I've always admired. I mean, dude, I could Tech Nine, freaking Twister. I really loved Lupe Fiasco. I remember when he first came out. I liked him number one because he's a nerd. I mean, he talked about anime and Street Fighter and video games and stuff like that. Martial arts. He's a big martial arts buff too. And that's like all the same stuff I like. And for him to be rapping about it, I was like, all right, that's dope. But he's really intelligent, and I mean, he's a endless dictionary.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lupe for sure was and still is one of those guys where I'm just like, man, this dude is he's kind of in his own thing. Jay-Z too. I love Drake. I think Drake is dope. I think Kanye is a genius. Um, yeah, I mean, I even like a lot of the new guys like um, what's his name, the baby.
Yeah, yeah.
Young Thug. Yeah, I mean, they all got some dope joints. It's dope stuff you can listen to
Yeah, I mean,
for sure.
it's taught me so much musically, but it's such a cool history. I love the history of hip hop, even
Yeah.
back to the early days. I mean, I know like Snoop's
Oh
favorite
yeah.
is Slick Rick, and honestly,
Slick
like
Rick. Yep.
Kendrick Lamar has really pushed the envelope, and I would
Kendrick,
say like
J. Cole.
in a lot of technical ways, Kendrick is my favorite, and I think he's got such a perfect track
Mm-hmm.
record, album to album. Every album is so amazing,
Mm-hmm.
but Slick Rick might be my favorite just on just
Slick Rick
his
is dope.
sound and his historical impact and
Yep.
oh my god, like yeah.
Rakim. Yeah. Like
Yeah, yeah.
it's so much good classic stuff, man. Like Big Pun. Oh my goodness. Like it's so much, man. It's so much. Biggie, of course, Tupac.
Of course.
I love J. Cole. I think he's dope. I love Kendrick. It's a lot of dudes out here, man. That's just like OGs that were amazing, and it's a lot of the newer guys that are really doing some dope stuff
Uh, I'm
for sure.
I'm sure you've seen a lot of these guys live. I mean, do you have a particular
Oh yeah.
favorite live band?
Oh, in hip hop, let's see. I mean, my favorite band was the one I played in, man.
Oh, I'm sure it was a bad band, man. I mean, I would have loved to
It's
have seen it.
I mean, because a lot of the guys that were in the Snoop literally. So all his band members, even if you're an alumni, you called a Snoopadelic.
Yeah,
So anybody that's been a band member of Snoop is called a Snoopadelic. I mean, it's like probably now like 10 different bass players and 10 different guitar players, 20 different keyboard players. I mean, and he's had some of the best musicians in the world, from Ron Avant, who is part of the Free Nationals and works with um, what's the name?
Anderson Pack.
Anderson Pack.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then he's had Lawrence Dobson, which is 1500 or nothing. Uncle Chuck and James Fauntleroy and Mars. These are all 1500 or nothing. Brody, um, Bam Alexander. I mean, it's like he's had some of the greatest, literally some of the greatest musicians. Carlos McSwain, rest in peace. Um, Man, it's RC from RC and the Grits. Um, Dude, it's a long list. Spud,
oh, Spot wasn't with them.
dude, Spud is a Snoopadelic, man. He
Oh,
was a Snoopadelic. Him
damn.
and RC together, and then Tehran Lockett. Like it's literally this massive list of musicians that have worked with Snoop. You know, Terrace Martin, of course, and you got Battle Cat. Man, it's a really really long list. Man,
Yeah,
who's the MD for John Legend? Dude, the list is massive, man. It's so massive.
yeah. I mean, I don't even know all of them, but there's some big names in there. I mean, Terrace Martin's
Yeah.
like a god. I mean, I'm a huge Herbie Hancock nerd, and I love
Mhm.
seeing him do stuff with him, and then go over and do shit with Kendrick Lamar.
Yep. Robert
Uh,
Glassford. Yeah, that whole camp.
yeah. Um, but yeah, man. I mean, I can go on talking about it. I mean, I should wrap it up because I to fit it in the show, I'd either have to break here or
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
or or cut it. But I really appreciate you doing this, man. It's so good talking to you. You're doing such cool things. I can't wait to hear the new album.
Thank you,
Um,
man.
what should people be looking out for? Where should they be keeping an eye on you?
Um. Well, I mean, next record. I mean, I plan on releasing some singles coming really soon here. Just in the process of relocating back to Japan once they open up the door.
Yeah.
Their COVID numbers are down, so I'm thinking it'll be really soon. But aside from that, I can't say too much about it. But I've formed a rock band with some buddies of mine. Um, I can't. That's about all I can say.
Okay. I'm keeping an eye
But
out.
be on the lookout for that, because it's night and day compared to all the other stuff that I work on. It's its own thing. And yeah, man, just still, make sure y'all go check out Janae Aiko. I've been enjoying working with her and Brian Warfield and Julian Lay the past couple of years on her music. She's like a songbird of our generation for sure. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, that's lot of little stuff going on. I know I'm gonna leave some things out, but yeah, just holler at me.
Awesome.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, man. It's really a pleasure.
Not a problem at all, brother.